welcome back to the Nurturing Coach channel. Today we're going to talk about parental alienation abuse. So if you are a child, a parent, a grandparent, a step-parent who's currently experiencing alienation, please do keep watching. So parental alienation abuse, it is abuse, and although it isn't recognised formally under the Children's Act or any other legislation, elements of it such as coercive control, emotional abuse, they are, but it doesn't cover, it's not sufficient, and obviously this is something that many people are seeking to change, and part of our work at NAPARRC is about raising that awareness and looking at those issues. But today I want to talk about what is parental alienation abuse. And in its simplest form, it is the systematic breakdown and destruction of a relationship between a parent and a child, or grandparent and child, by the other parent. And ultimately, for no reason other than the fact that they don't want them in their lives anymore. And I've covered in other videos lots of different reasons that this could be. It could be narcissistic injury, you've upset them in some way, so this is their revenge. It could be that they are pathogenic parents, so they make a lot of false allegations. It could be that this is how they're cult-like, they're an enmeshed family, and so you doing something that takes you out of that therefore means you're never allowed back in and you're cut out of everyone's lives. Like I say, we've covered those in videos previously, but what I want to talk to you about today is the specific abuse element involved. And at NAPARRC we particularly look at the narcissistic element, so I'm going to tie that in as well. So, emotional abuse. And I'm going to look at it for each of the different people involved. So it's emotional abuse of the child. This child is forced to choose between two people that it should be allowed to love. No child should ever be made to feel guilty for loving another parent, and they should never have to choose. Both parents brought them into the world. Both parents have equal rights to be loved and to love that child. The fact that a child is put in the middle of this is emotional abuse. It questions who they are. They have been brought up and raised by their parents. They've formed attachments to them, and parental alienation breaks those attachments. It severs those attachments, and that is incredibly damaging to a child. If you look at children who have been abused in terms of like sexually abused or physically abused by their parents and they're removed, they do it in a process. They do it foster care with supervised contact. They go through all their investigations, they check everything out, and they slowly, if they decide that they're going to have to permanently remove and go through adoption, or even permanently remove but stay in a foster home, that is a process that goes through, and it can be a really long process, and a lot of work has been done on how that difficult that is and how damaging that is for these children, because they still do love their parents, and yet with parental alienation it just happens. It can be that quick, and we're not addressing that. We're not addressing the impact that has on a child's emotional state. It's also looking at the child themselves. How would they feel? Because they're going to take it personally. The child does not have the cognitive ability to be able to recognise that this is an adult issue. All they feel is that they've lost someone they see is no longer in their lives, or they're pushing someone out, but they will feel that as rejection. And we know the damage that rejection can do to children. It can form avoidant, anxious, disorganized attachments, which have long-term mental health problems. It can cause long-term mental health problems for the child and as an adult as well. The psychological side of it is this child they're having false memories implanted. I've just done a big research paper on false memories and how easy it is to manipulate adult memories. Adults who should have that recollection, but actually we're incredibly susceptible to having false memories imprinted on us. And children are even more so because their brain hasn't developed in quite the same way. They are still learning, they're still trusting, they're being conditioned. There's all these different factors that play into it. And so psychologically, they're having their own memories affected, very much like gaslighting, what a narcissist does to an adult victim, they're doing to their child. They are gaslighting their own children by implanting all these false memories. They project onto their children any hurt that they are feeling. They will tell the child that it's happened to them. If for example, the narcissistic parent has been abused as a child, in order to elevate their claims, to back up these false allegations, they will implant the false memory. They will project onto their child that abuse happened to them. So how would that impact a child being made to believe that they've been abused by someone that they loved? They can't actually remember the incident themselves, but they're being convinced that it happened. And eventually, when you've been told so many times and you're conditioned, you're shouted at if you don't remember, you will start to take that on board. And so it's as if that abuse actually did happen. You have the exact same physical and emotional response, i.e. trauma, to something that didn't happen. And we know that trauma is devastating for children, devastating for adults. We look at post-traumatic stress disorder. Trauma can cause enormous long-term health problems for children. Unbelievable heart problems, brain problems, mental health problems, you name it, you can pin it down. Behavioural problems in schools, these are all can be underlined and underpinned back to a traumatic childhood. To me, this is trauma at the extreme. They are hitting you from every angle. On top of that, we have the possibility of physical and sexual abuse taking place as well. Physical abuse because narcissists get angry, they lash out. When they're not getting their way, when they're losing control, they will physically lash out, and they may hurt their own children in that process. Sexual abuse may occur, and I just did a video about that the other day, link is here, and that is all about lack of boundaries, surrogacy, that they turn to this child as the new partner, they emotionally lean on them, they physically start to lean on them, those boundaries are crossed. Alienation then is made worse because the child feels the shame of the abuse and can't tell anyone. Again, they're conditioned not to tell, so they're pulled even further into this alienating environment, an abusive environment. On top of that, you have the abuse that is occurring to the parent who's being alienated, that they are being abused by the parent who's alienating them, abused by the child, but completely accidentally because they're being used as part of this. They are abused by the system that we are working within because we have a duty to investigate any allegations, and that process can lead to the removal, and therefore it can be adding to the alienation. So the process itself can be alienating and abusive. Professionals are being abused in this because they're being dragged in, they're being triangulated into the process. They are having their professional integrity put on the line because they are going along with the lies and the abuse. This is how manipulative narcissists are. They are able to bypass our normal rational responses and really they trigger, they know exactly what buttons to press of everyone in the process. So for professionals, they play this victim card, and as a professional, your natural instinct, I know I became a social worker because I wanted to help people. So when someone triggers that in you, you go into rescue mode. And this is exactly what the narcissists want. They want you to rescue them because it adds credibility, it helps with the alienation, and therefore it helps with keeping the abuse hidden from everyone else. As a society, again, we are abusive as well. There's a level of acceptance that this is happening. There's a level of gender bias and stereotyping involved. We don't, as a society, tend to believe that men are able to be victims of abuse. And equally, we assume that women are victims of abuse. And whilst both are true, men can be abusers, women can be abused, equally, men can be abused and women can be abusers. And we as a society do not recognise that. It goes against all of our upbringing. Again, I've done a video all about the impact of parental alienation on society, so I'm not going to go into that. But it is an abuse of the society that we are living in. Parental alienation abuse is very real. As the statistics earlier in the video state, this is a massive problem worldwide and in the UK. We at NAPARRC are trying to educate professionals and provide support for individuals who are going through this. We focus on the narcissistic element because in my experience, this is predominantly those cases that are so severe. There is a narcissist behind the scenes pulling at everyone's strings. I have put together a guide to help you with parental alienation abuse and parental alienation syndrome. The link is on the screen if you want to grab a copy. I'll also put it in the description under the video. If you are struggling with parental alienation or narcissistic abuse, please do get in touch. I'll put the email address on screen now, but I will also put it in the description as well, along with links to my other social media accounts, so you can get in touch. Genuinely, I am here. I do want to listen. I do want to help. We are building something amazing with NAPARRC. We have a lot of professionals on board who are supporting us, and it can only be a good thing. If you are experiencing it, you have my deepest sympathy.